Welcome, motocross fans, to another night of exciting fights. This is UFC Fight Pass, where we're going to be looking at some NL10 hands that I played last night. Played quite a few games of $10 heads up sit and goes on Ignition, and decided to do something, quote, a little bit different tonight, end quote. And just came up with kind of a compilation of some interesting hands. So the King 7 offsuit is not one of them. But here, I think this is an interesting decision point as soon as villain raises. I think we could decide to go for the 3-bet if we wanted to have a very merged, value-heavy, depolarized range against just the right kind of opponent who's either, maybe calling too wide against 3-bets pre-flop, and probably some combination of giving up too easy on the flop, facing continuation bets, or getting very sticky, or just if we know that he's making some pretty specific decisions. I think Queen Jack suited can easily find its way into our value merged 3-betting range, but I elected to go for the flat call, and I think that's perfectly fine. Also, the interesting spot comes on the flop. We've got an obvious check to the Razor when Razor has a pretty clear range advantage, or at least this is a board where we would consider we would consider to have hit pre-flop Razor much harder than the pre-flop caller. With the only exception, I guess, is that we're going to have a higher concentration of Jack 10 for the nuts exactly. So like villain here can have all the top pairs on the flop. He can have all the 2-pair combos. He can have all the set combos, and we can't have all that. So he's got, way more frequent strength. He's going to have a good hand far more often than we are. He's going to have something like a 3-street value hand. So at this stack depth, he's definitely got the range at base. He should be betting, I think, all of his air, and he seems competent. So when competent villain checks back this flop, we can intuit, or we can kind of take an educated guess or reason that he does not have like a monster value hand that he'd be looking to go for 3 streets with. Not very often anyway. Occasionally you'll find a guy that'll check back pocket aces on this kind of a flop, occasionally Jack 10 on this kind of a flop, but I think both of those things are tempered somewhat by the fact that there are draws open, and plenty of them can be in my range. I'm going to have lots of, plenty of jacks and plenty of 10s in my wheelhouse, and a lot of suited combos, which would give me plenty of flush draws and plenty of third pairs. A lot of just hands that can easily call 3 streets, and draw and combo draw type hands that are going to be best to bet, value bet, flop, and turn against. So yeah, I think we can discount the likelihood of him having a monster hand here, but I also think we can discount the possibility of him having air. I think he should be betting all of his draws, flush draws, and most of his straight draws, like all of his air and his big value hands. He should be betting with a lot of his range here, and I expect that he would be. So when he checks back, I think we can put him on a pretty specific range of hands. So what does that look like? I would say that probably looks like a lot of his pocket pairs, and some of his, especially like pocket jacks and pocket 10s, where he's got a showdownable hand that can always call a turn lead, and we'll be able to raise some turns after checking back flop, and be able to raise some rivers after checking back flop and calling turn. So a hand with showdown value that is probably too strong to bluff with and not quite strong enough to value bet with, and I think that's going to be the bulk of his range. So that's going to be like Queen X and a bunch of pocket pairs, I'd expect. And I think we can weight it towards pocket 10s and pocket jacks and the pocket pairs, because pairs like pocket 2s and all the way up to maybe like pocket 9s even might just decide to bluff. And I think the lower the pair, the more likely it is to just turn into a bluff on this type of a board. So when he checks back, I think the first thing we can do is we can range him pretty specifically to pocket pair heavy, showdown value, maybe like combo draws, if he's got maybe the occasional hand like pocket aces sometimes, and maybe the occasional hand like ace X of spades. But yeah, again, most of the time I think he's going to bet those. So I think we're waiting towards pocket jacks. Queen X would make a lot of sense. And the pocket pairs that aren't small enough to just go ahead and turn them into a bluff and don't have that much to gain by getting me to let go of my equity share in the pot. So the next question is, what is our plan, given that we do have a pretty reasonable holding of our own here? We've got a gut shot and second pair. So I think that it could be kind of close between checking and betting, but I think that in this spot we want to go ahead and bet to try to get value from the pocket pairs, especially hands like pocket tens, pocket jacks, and almost all of his queens are going to be drawing in pretty bad shape against us. So a hand like Queen 10 I think would make a good deal of sense here. I think we want to get value from the Queen X, and there should be, I think, a pretty decent amount of Queen X in his range. And I don't think we can count on him betting for us. So if we check here, I think a lot of the times he's just going to check back the stuff that we beat that would call a bet, and he's just going to bet himself with mostly hands that beat us. And it just allows him to play a pretty easy game against us if we check. So I think we should go for a bet here, and then we've got to think about the sizing. And normally when villain checks the flop back, I'm bombing turns with a polarized range against what I'm assuming is going to be a bluff catcher heavy range. But my hand is just not so strong that I can do that for value. So I like, and his range just isn't that strong where I feel comfortable doing that for value. I don't really want to fold out a hand like pocket sixes. I'd like to get one street. And there's a lot of combos that I think I can get two streets if I do it the right way, depending on runouts and whatnot. Maybe by betting the turn and check calling the river, or betting turn and then betting river. But for starters, and also we've got the gut shot to improve to the nuts on a jack of diamonds or a 10 of diamonds or a 10 of clubs or a 10 of not spades, I guess. So I like a half pot size bet here. I think that's the ticket. I think we should bet half the size of the pot. And I think that's what I did. I haven't actually watched these hands since the video. Do I have that lined up right where you guys can see the bet sizes? Kind of. Well, I did that half pot, so let's see what we can do about that. I think you'll see why all of these decisions were pretty interesting. So right off the rip, we can either go for a 3-bet or we can go for the flat call. It's close, but I think, calling is fine. And we go for the call. We have a very easy check here on the flop, planning to check and call, and when he checks back, I think a lot of times in similar situations to this, we would be just checking and calling with bottom pair and a gut shot. But if you really get specific and analyze villain's range on the flop, I think it becomes a little more apparent why betting gets the nod. But if you're not paying attention to the range that your opponent's likely to have, you're likely to miss this kind of a thing, even if you've got a pretty good overall, reasonable, I should say, game plan overall. You could miss a value bet in a spot like that. But the real interesting spot, I think, is this river decision, where once we bet the flop or bet the turn, after villain checks the flop back as pre-flop raise, or we bet half pot on the turn, he just calls. We make 2 pair on the river when it's unlikely that villain can have a flush, or he's not going to have many flushes. It might look pretty tempting to value bet, but when you really think about it, what's he going to call with? And so I think it becomes pretty obvious that we want to start by checking. What might be kind of not as obvious is that the more I think about it, the more I think checking and folding is a much better play than checking and calling. If he's betting here, what is he bluffing with? Is he going to be betting a hand that we can beat for value? Is he going to bet like a top pair, just a single pair? Is he going to bet any single pair hands that we can beat? I could see him turning something into a bluff, like if he has some kind of a Jack X. I can see him turning, maybe even some of his Queen X into bluffs here. But even King Queen might be a little bit thin from his perspective. If you have King Queen, you may just check that back. Ace King, King Queen, Ace Queen. There's so many hands that beat us. But what are the value hands that he would be betting for value that we beat? I'd say there's exactly 0. I don't think he's going to bet Queen 8. And that's about the only hand I could think of that we might occasionally be good against here. Or some kind of like Jack 8 with like the 8 of spades, maybe. But I don't think most people are going to bet either of those hands. So even though he doesn't have a lot of flushes, I just think that he's repping pocket jacks pretty hard, and he's repping pocket tens pretty hard, and he's not repping that much beyond that, and I think that we should believe him, and kind of for the same reasons that I think it makes sense to bet the turn for value against a specific range. I think we can make a really, really good check fold on this river if we're paying attention. Apparently, I wasn't, because I decided in game to go for the check call and paid the price. Pretty standard so far. Yeah, we could have gone for the check call. Okay, so same villain checked back the flop. I think this was the same villain. Yeah. So he checked back the flop last time with a pretty reasonable hand to do that with. He had specifically a pair that had a gut shot. It was a decently high pair for being an under pair to the board, and the Broadway gut shot. So when he checks back on this turn, or on this flop rather, what kind of hands would we expect him to have? And I would say it would make an awful lot of sense to think that he could have a hand like pocket fives, right? Same kind of hand. Or he could have like an 8x of hearts, or some kind of a 6x, like a hand like 7-6 or ace-6 would make a lot of sense. So if we think that mostly villain's just going to have showdown value type hands, maybe some combo draws, like showdownable but not value bettable pair plus some kind of a draw, or just a hand like, I don't know, pocket something small, or like 6x, if that's most of his range, and some other stuff that he's just going to give up with, then what's the best way to approach this turn? I think the answer is to go for the turn bet, and I think that in this spot we want to size a little bit higher. The reason is because now a lot of the hands that can fit into this pair plus some sort of a draw just improved. Specifically, many of them improved to two pair, right? So he's going to have enough two pair in his range. He's going to have probably other combo draws in his range that we want to start putting some real pressure on. And the other thing is that he's going to have probably quite a bit of equity, and he's going to be in a spot where the hands that don't have equity are going to fold pretty much no matter what we bet. So I think in hindsight, I could actually even get behind going for a bigger size and betting something like 100 or 120. A lot of times when a player checks back a hand like, I don't know, a weak 8 or like ace-6 in a spot like this, they're going to feel like really under-repped and kind of feel like they have to call at least once, and they're going to be relatively inelastic regarding the bet size. And the other thing is, if he's just got some kind of error that was likely going to give up on the flop, that 10 probably did not help matters for him much. So he could have pocket 10s that are like never going to fold, right? And he could have 10x that is made 2 pair, or he can have still a pair plus draws, and all of those are going to be relatively inelastic. They're going to call almost regardless of bet sizing, so definitely don't use a small sizing here, and pot sized I think is the bare minimum. And now the ace comes out, and I went for another pot sized bet, which I think is fine, but again, if I had it to do over again, I think I would prefer either checking to induce a light value bet, going for the check raise that way, or making a bigger bet. And I actually think going for the bigger bet is probably best, just because of all the 2 pairs that might check back and the pair plus draws that are definitely going to check back. So if I had it to do over again, I think I would look to bet something like 100 on the turn instead of 80, and then as played, getting to the river here with a pot of 240, I would like to see me go for something more like 360 or 400 even, expecting that he's never going to fold his pocket 10s, and he's probably not going to be able to get away from 2 pairs, or it's going to be hard. You know, he might do it, but do it begrudgingly. And if he has something like the ace-6, he may well feel like he just got there in a way that's going to at least force him to call one more time. Now, should he be calling with all of those combos is another question entirely, and the answer to most of them is no. But I'd be very surprised to see myself bet 360 into 240 and see this guy hit the fold button, and then look back and see that he had even ace-6, let alone pocket 10s. So I think, there might be some hands that'll be elastic, but a lot of the hands that are going to be elastic are probably going to have to bet smaller than 240. And the busted draws, a lot of them have a pair, and they might be elastic, but they're not going to call the 240. The parts of his range that are going to call, I think, are going to call a bigger bet. So, maybe this isn't the... I like this bet sizing decision better than I liked my turn bet sizing decision, because he will have some stuff like, 10x, like 10-9, 10-8, maybe not 10-9, but yeah, 10-8, maybe just even, some 1 pairs that might just get sticky and call this bet, but I think probably going smaller or bigger, I'm thinking mostly bigger, is going to be a higher EV bet sizing overall. Doesn't matter, he's got the part of his range that decides to fold. So this was another hand I thought was pretty interesting. You got ace-4, face the open raise, go for the flat call, check to the razor on this flop for sure. He checks back and we get an interesting turn card. So I think both options are pretty close. We can check. Really, when we check, we're hoping that it checks back. But at the same time, if we bet, we're really betting, hoping he folds. So I think we check, and then we might have to go for a call depending on the bet sizing. But we're really checking, just hoping to get this hand to showdown. And he does check back. And so now, we've got an interesting decision again. I think this is a spot we can consider going for a value bet even with bottom pair, but only if we're pretty confident that our opponent would bet a pair of 5s on the turn, and if we're pretty confident that he would call with ace high. And if we don't know both of those things, then it's pretty hard to bet. So I think generally speaking, we're going to want to check and hope that our opponent checks back. Now, he really should not have 6s in his range. The problem with that is that we're not going to have a lot of 6s either, because I could see us having 6-8s and going for the check raise on the turn. I think if we just had a 6 that wasn't a made, like not 6-3 and not 6-8, then we're probably just going to be leading the turn. So when the 4-card straight comes out, but it's pretty unlikely that we have it, and it's pretty hard for me to believe that villain checked the backdoor draw on the flop and then checked back and open-ended straight draw on the turn. I'm not buying that. So this is a spot where I think it can make sense to go for a check to start with. Hope he checks back ace high and just loses. Yeah, I was looking at going for a big bet, trying to get him to fold something like 5 or something, and then I decide that's not enough value targets. And we go for the check, and he does go for the bet. And do we call? Do we fold? It's close, right? Well, given what I just said, and how unlikely it is for a villain to have a 6, even though it's pretty unlikely for us to have a 6, I think this is a pretty good spot to just go ahead and turn our pair of 4s into a bluff. And one of the things I like about playing the hand this way is when we check the river, if he checks back, we win pretty often. So we don't lose very much by just going for the check. And then if he bets and we come in for the raise, it's really hard for him to have a hand that's good enough to call. Now, if he's a really good hand reader, the bigger problem would be, that I'd be afraid of, is for him to come back over the top with a bluff, or even for thinner value, putting us on some like 8-5 or something. Yeah, so we go for the raise, and honestly, how can you call? Right? So I really do like this play. I'm not just bragging because it worked, which you can be pretty certain of at this point. Okay, so villain does end up having the 10-6, but he's not supposed to. So anyway, guys, that's 30 minutes, and I just wanted to throw something up. It's been a little while, and I wanted to try something new. I kind of feel like I could have done a better job in the editing process. I apologize, but hopefully you got something out of it. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Oh, I did want to talk a little bit about the coaching that I've got going on. So my roster's actually filling up pretty quick. I don't know why it tends to go in spurts like this. I had a spurt maybe 3 months back where everybody was climbing out of the woodwork wanting coaching sort of all at once, and that kind of died down. I just had a couple guys left from that little spurt that were still doing sessions, but I hadn't had any new coaching requests in a while, and then I just started getting kind of slammed with them. I actually had 3 in 2 days, 3 people signing up or close to it, 2 actually signing up, another one that sounds pretty well signed up. And we've got things scheduled and on the books, so the stuff is filling up, but right now I'm still running those super low rates, just depending on what kind of coaching package you want to get. Just 3 hours, if you just commit to 3 1-hour sessions, that's $90, just $30 an hour. That's what most people are doing, or single hours are probably not something that you're gonna. I don't know. I'll do single sessions for $40 an hour, but it seems to me like you may as well just go for the 3 hours, and it's just a much better value. And then if you're in for the $90 for 3 1-hour sessions, you can just sign up for 5. 10 sessions, and it's $20 an hour for $100. Now, I'm not going to be able to do that forever. Like I've explained to other people, like some of my other students, if you come on board while I'm offering those prices, then I'm going to grandfather them. I'm going to just kind of let you keep those rates as long as you're doing some kind of coaching on at least a semi-consistent basis. But at some point, if I'm booked like 3 weeks out, I'm going to have to stop offering coaching at such a cheap price. And the reason that I do is because honestly I enjoy coaching. And you get it's a good value because not only is it a low price, a low rate, but I usually, and really I'm going to say so far every time in the last, 3 months I've done a coaching session, it's gone over. They always go over. I won't promise that or guarantee it, and it looks like there could be a day when that's going to change. It's getting a little bit tougher to make time for all of it, but at time being, there's a pretty good chance for you to squeeze out, an hour and a half out of a 1 hour session, and at $20 an hour, hard if not impossible to beat. I charge because if I did it for free, my fiance would probably take issue with that. I've got to be able to justify taking time away from the family somehow. But I guess that's it for today, guys, for tonight. Until next time, hope you enjoyed the video. Please comment any questions, or if you'd like to look into some coaching, it's you can get me at dondoust@gmail.com, or leave a comment in the comment section below. Till next time, good quote, LUCK, exclamation point, end quote.